My name is Reed Nelson, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. I know your time is valuable. I am not here to be your enemy. I am not here to shame you. I am not here to make you feel guilty. I'm not here to do anything besides challenge the way that you see the world. That's it. And I'm hoping that you'll have an open mind and allow me to do that. This is me in high school. I was the captain of the basketball team, and the local newspaper came through to interview us and make a small profile. And as you can see, my favorite food in high school was meat. I loved meat. I loved milk. I loved cheese. I loved eggs. I loved ice cream. I loved yogurt. I loved it all. If you would have told me in high school that one day I'd be vegan and that I'd be standing in front of people talking about it, I would have laughed in your face, not because I was a mean person, but because the idea would have sounded impossible. I would have sooner believed that I'd be an astronaut, and I cannot stand roller coasters. I didn't know a single vegan. I didn't follow a single vegan. I didn't read about it. I didn't think about it. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't in my world. It wasn't even a question. It didn't feel like a belief I was rejecting. It felt like something my brain couldn't even process. In 1889, the University of North Dakota chose its official school colors, and this is true. You want to guess what they were? Green and pink. Some 60 years later, in 1947, a small group of people in a university boardroom in Grand Forks, North Dakota, decided it can't be pink anymore. Pink is a girl's color. So, somewhere between 1889 and 1947, society quietly rewrote the meaning of a color. And from that moment forward, pink was treated as a girl's color. Folks, pink is just a color. That is all it is. Pink is just a color, like 112 is just a number. And that's how conditioning works. It doesn't arrive as an argument. It arrives as normal. That's what a story does when it's told long enough. You don't remember learning it, you just remember living inside of it. When you were 5 years old, you didn't decide that pink was a girl's color, it just was. You also didn't decide that drinking another species' breast milk was normal. It just was. You didn't, at the age of 5, look at a mother cow and say, that's for me. For many of you, myself included, it just was. Drinking milk was just something you did. It wasn't right. It wasn't wrong. It just was. We are the only species that drinks milk past adolescence, the only one. And the only species that drinks the milk of another species entirely. We don't question it because we inherited it, just like the color pink. And if something like that can feel totally normal without us ever choosing it, it makes you wonder, what else did we inherit? What else feels normal only because it was built into us before we were old enough to question it? For me, the first glitch in the matrix, the first time I noticed something in my worldview wasn't actually mine, something I unwillingly inherited, started with these two. These are my two dogs from 2012 until 2023. Both Daisy and Chopper have since passed and are now in puppy heaven, having the time of their lives. Does anyone know what kind of dogs these are? Good guess, but that's incorrect. These are actually the best dogs. I don't make the rules. Okay? Yes, they are also Yorkies, so technically you are correct. But here's what's interesting about them. Even though these two look very similar, these two are completely different. The one on the right, Daisy, more like a cat. Incredible athlete, does not want to be picked up. Independent, observant. The one on the left, Chopper, not an athlete at all. Total cuddle bear. Wanted to be with you at all times, or, truthfully wanted to be with my wife at all times. Different energy, different needs, different personality. And somewhere around 2013 or 2014, something clicked in me. These weren't just two dogs, these were two individuals, two completely different personalities living inside two tiny, separate bodies. And once I saw that, it felt obvious. But something strange happened after that, because when I look at two cows, like the ones you're about to see, there's this assumption inside me that says those two are the same. They're not. One might be anxious. One might be calm. One might be curious. One might be a total jerk. They're individuals. But that's not how my brain was treating them. My brain wasn't seeing individuals. My brain was seeing a product, not personalities, inventory, not lives, utility, not someone, something. More like a pair of shoes or a stack of firewood. Not who they are, just how they can benefit me and my life. And then in 2015, something happened that collapsed two worlds I had been keeping separate. I was sitting in a conference room with my boss. Our offices were under construction, so we were sharing a temporary space. And that morning, the news was everywhere. Cecil the lion had been killed in Africa. A big game hunter, from Minnesota nonetheless, had lured him out of his protected habitat and shot him. People were furious. People were grieving. Jimmy Kimmel was on television crying. My boss was angry. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm angry too. That's wrong. Then I looked down at my plate. I was eating a turkey burger. I looked over at my boss. He was eating beef jerky. And for the first time in my life, a thought entered my brain that had never entered it before. I looked at my burger and I thought, how many turkeys are in this burger? And right there, in that ordinary moment, something became painfully clear. I wasn't just sad about Cecil. I wasn't just angry at the hunter. I was a hypocrite. How can I be outraged about that death while actively paying for this one? How can I mourn one animal with my words while consuming another with my hands? And that was the moment I realized my values and my behaviors weren't living in the same room. Not long after that, a mentor of mine pulled me aside and said, I want to show you a clip of a speaker. Okay, he's an excellent speaker, but don't really listen to what he's saying. He's extreme. Okay, listen to how he's saying it, not what he's saying. That speaker was vegan activist Gary Yourofsky. And the longer I watched, the clearer it became. I wasn't just watching a speech. I was watching my excuses fall apart. And everything he said kept circling the same question I didn't want to answer. If I love animals, why am I eating them? That was my personal light bulb moment. But I want to be very clear. I did not go vegan. That wasn't even on the table. That wasn't a hard option. That wasn't a scary option. That wasn't an option at all. The furthest I could ever imagine was vegetarian. And in my mind, at that time, that felt huge. I told myself, that's it. That's as far as I can go. No meat? Fine. Cheese? Still in. Milk? Still in. Eggs, ice cream, yogurt, absolutely, all still in. My wife and I lived on cheese pizza for the better part of a year. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to get by. And if I'm being honest, nothing really changed. I didn't feel different. I just stopped at a place that felt manageable. I hadn't actually confronted anything yet. About 1 year later, July of 2016, about 10 years ago now. I don't remember exactly what led me there. There wasn't a build-up. There wasn't a speech. I was just standing in line at Papa Murphy's waiting to order a cheese pizza, like we always did. The line was moving extremely slow, much slower than normal. And for some reason, in that ordinary moment, a thought hit me. Those poor mother cows, their babies are being taken from them so that we can drink the milk that was meant for them. And suddenly, it wasn't abstract anymore. It wasn't a concept. She was a mother chasing after her baby as he was pulled away from her. Can you imagine carrying a baby inside your body for 9 months, building that bond, and then one day he's just taken away from you like it never mattered? Like that connection didn't just cost you everything. That hit me all at once. And I remember thinking, that's not right. I'm paying for that. That's not right. And right there in that line, I said to myself, I'm done supporting this. I'm done. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel strong. And I definitely, let me be very clear, did not think I'd be able to do it forever. I just knew I couldn't unsee it anymore. Then, about 3 weeks later, my wife and I went to a restaurant in Northeast Minneapolis called Pizzeria. We ordered a vegan pizza. I'd heard good things, but I did not walk in convinced. It was amazing. And I thought to myself, if I can eat like this, I can be vegan for the rest of my life. And in that moment, sitting in a pizza restaurant in Northeast Minneapolis, my last excuse disappeared. It didn't fade, it was gone. And just to be clear, that didn't turn me into a perfect person. It didn't make me enlightened. It didn't make me finished. It just meant I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't unknow what I knew. And I couldn't go back to the story I had been telling myself. I didn't go vegan because I thought I was better than anybody. I went vegan because the story I had been telling myself finally broke. And that's what brings us to the next part, because every single person in this room is carrying a story too. Picture this. If you need to close your eyes, close your eyes. It's July 4th. You worked that morning, but now you're finally off. The rest of today and tomorrow. You're driving out to the lake to meet your friends. They've been there all day, so you're running behind. Windows down, good mood, summer air. You're winding through back roads, and up ahead, you see it. A mother duck and her ducklings crossing the road. And every single person in this room knows exactly what happens next. You slow down. You might sigh. You might lean forward over the steering wheel because they are taking forever, but you wait. You don't honk. You don't inch forward. You don't even consider the alternative. Some of you might get out and gently usher them across. Some of you would turn around and take the long way to the lake. What none of you would do is drive through them. Now, the next part might be hard to hear, but I promise I am not judging you. There's a latte in your cup holder. There's dairy milk in it. There's a sandwich in your bag that your partner packed for you that morning. Ham, turkey, doesn't matter. That animal was killed. That milk only exists because the calf was separated from his mother forever. So here's the contradiction. You would never harm the animal in front of you, and yet harm still exists in the choices you make, not because you don't care, but because you don't have to see it. That's the only difference. Now, let's say you're scrolling your phone, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you scroll, and you see a video of a deer stuck in a fence. A farmer pulls his truck over, he gets out. He pulls out his phone and he starts recording and says, I gotta get this deer out of here. And your heart tightens a little. The deer is panicking, kicking, crying. The farmer is struggling because he doesn't want to get hurt either. It's messy. It's tense. And 20 seconds in, you're still watching. 30 seconds. 45 seconds. You want nothing more in the world right now than for this deer to be free. You look down, this video is from 2017. It doesn't matter. He finally figures out a way to free her, and when that fence comes loose, the deer explodes into the trees like lightning, and you feel it. Relief. Joy. Maybe even a little lump in your throat. That video might be 9 years old, but in that moment, you were fully invested in that deer. Or it's a dog stuck at the bottom of a well. He scrambles halfway up, falls back down, halfway up, falls back down. Now people gather, people kneel at the edge, reaching, grabbing, trying anything they can think of. And for a moment, every single person watching is united by one simple feeling: please let this dog make it out. And finally, he makes it. He climbs out, he disappears, and everybody watching wins. We root for animals when they're trapped. We mourn for animals when they're suffering. We cheer when they escape. And then we close the app and go right back to paying for that same suffering, just on a scale so large we can't emotionally comprehend it anymore. That's us. We did that. We're doing that. We are. You don't see the suffering. That's not by accident. That's by design. The system is built so that harm happens far away from your eyes. Behind walls, behind labels, behind packaging, behind fancy marketing campaigns. You don't see the animal, you see a neatly packaged product. You don't see a mother, you see an ingredient. You don't see someone, you see something. And that distance isn't accidental, that distance is the whole point. Because if you had to look every time, if your food came with the face, if buying steak meant watching what it took to make it, this wouldn't feel normal anymore. So when I say there's a contradiction in all of us, that's not an attack, I promise you. That's not a judgment. That's just what happens when compassion is real and consequences are hidden. You are not broken. You are not cruel. You are not heartless. You are operating inside a system that works very hard to make sure your empathy never has to meet your consumption. And that's why moments like the mother duck and her babies hit us so hard. That's why moments like the deer wreck us. Because for just a second, that distance disappears. And we are exactly who we always were. So here's the only question I want to leave you with as we move forward. If you already are this person in moments, the person who slows down for the ducks, what would it look like to be this person on purpose? And this is where the questions start to rise. Okay, Reed, what about us? What about people? What about farmers? What about jobs? What about food security? What about feeding 8 billion people? What about medicine? What about antibiotics? What about the economy? These are all fair questions. Because if this were just about animals, it would be so simple. But it's not just about animals. It's about every system we live inside. One of the biggest stories we've been told is this: that we need animal agriculture to feed the world, that without it, people would starve. But what most people never hear is this: the majority of food we grow on Earth is not grown to feed humans, it's grown to feed animals. Corn, grains, soybeans. We grow food, we give it to animals, pigs, cows, chickens, to get them as fat as possible, to extract as much possible profit from their helpless bodies as we can. They burn most of those calories in water just staying alive. And then we eat the animal at the end. They are the middleman. And in that conversion, the vast majority of protein, calories, energy, and water are lost. So the real question isn't whether we can feed the world without animal agriculture. The real question is how many more people we could already be feeding if we just skipped the middleman. Because with the food we already grow today, we could feed the global population 2 to 3 times over in a single year if it weren't being routed through animals first. That's not a future vision. That's right now, and I can assure you I've heard much higher estimates than 2 to 3. I've heard as high as 10. What about farmers? The backbone of America. Many farmers are waking up before sunrise every day just trying to hold on to something their family has built for generations. Most didn't create this system, they inherited it. Debt, contracts, expectations, generations of pressure telling them this is just the way things are done. And many farmers today are trapped in systems they don't fully control. They don't control the prices. They don't control the supply chain. They don't control the contracts. A handful of massive corporations do. Many farmers are working harder than ever for thinner margins than ever. Some are drowning in debt. Some feel trapped between survival and conscience. And when disease spreads, when prices collapse, when farms fail, it's usually the farmer who loses everything, not the corporation. So this system doesn't just break animals, it breaks people too. And there's one other group the system quietly runs on, the one most of us never see, but we all know they're there. Slaughterhouse workers. Many of them are migrants. Many of them are undocumented. Many of them are working these jobs because no one else will. These are some of the most dangerous jobs in the country. Amputations, lifelong injuries, psychological trauma, some of the highest rates of PTSD of any profession. During COVID, these plants became mass infection zones. People were told to keep working while getting sick. Many of them died. And the system knew exactly who it was hiring. It still does. People with the least power. People with the least protection, the fewest options. This isn't just an animal story, it's a human one too. Here's something almost nobody realizes. The vast majority of antibiotics used on Earth aren't given to sick humans. They are given to healthy animals to keep them alive in overcrowded, torturous conditions. And every time that happens, bacteria get stronger, resistance spreads, medicine gets weaker. This isn't a future problem. This is an already happening problem. And when antibiotics stop working, modern medicine doesn't just slow down, it collapses. Water use, deforestation, methane, dead zones in the ocean, topsoil collapse. We're not talking about polar bears in 50 years. We're talking about food prices today, floods, droughts, fires, insurance collapsing, entire regions becoming unlivable. This system touches everything. The system didn't grow because it was evil. It grew because it was efficient for profit. Speed, scale, shelf life, margins, shareholders. The system rewards distance, volume, convenience, silence. Not wisdom, not long-term health, not emotional truth, not sustainability. And when a system rewards disconnection long enough, disconnection becomes normal. So no, this isn't a story about good people and bad people. It's a story about good people living inside systems that make certain outcomes feel inevitable. You didn't build this system. Farmers didn't build this system. You were born into it. You learned its rules before you learned how to question them. And that brings us back to the only question that actually matters. You already know how to care. You already know how to slow down. You already know how to protect something smaller than you. You already know how to feel empathy. You do it on the road. You do it with the deer. You do it with the dog. The real question is whether you're willing to let that compassion reach the places it's been kept from, not because you're cruel, not because you're broken, but because the world taught you that this was normal. Thank you very much. My name is Reed Nelson. I'll stick around for any questions that you have.
The room is heavy with the weight of goodbye. Shadows whisper where your laughter used to lie. The air is colder since you walked away. Every breath I take just fades to gray. Shattered echoes fill my hollow chest. Every heartbeat feels like a protest. Your name still lingers like a ghost in the hall. I tried to hold on, but I lost it all. The clock ticks slower when you're not around. Time is a thief, stealing hope I once found. I trace the cracks on the walls of my soul, searching for pieces to make myself whole. Shattered echoes fill my hollow chest. Every heartbeat feels like a protest. Your name still lingers like a ghost in the hall. I tried to hold on, but I lost it all. I scream at the silence, but it won't scream back. Memories haunt me like a thief in the black. I reach for your shadow, but it slips away, leaving me lost in this endless decay. Shattered echoes fill my hollow chest. Every heartbeat feels like a protest. Your name still lingers like a ghost in the hall. I tried to hold on, but I lost it all.